Alright guys, today we're going to be going over the basic process of making mead. Here's all the ingredients. Pretty self-explanatory, it's just water, honey, and yeast. So step one for any home brewing, whether it's beer, wine, cider, whatever, always is going to be sanitizing. There's a few methods. You can use Star San like we're using here. There's one step, there's a few other products. I prefer Star San, it's kind of the industry standard. So once everything's sanitized, you want to pull it out, let it air dry. So Star San is a no rinse solution, so those bubbles totally fine. Now we're going to be adding our main ingredient, honey. You want to use anywhere from 2 to 3 pounds per gallon of water. I've got about 3 pounds going in here, so this should come out to a pretty reasonable semi-sweet mead. Here things pick up a bit. I actually end up mixing the honey with some water. That way it would just not take as long. So once all of your honey's added, of course you move on to your next main ingredient, water. Generally speaking, you don't want to use well water or any water with high pollutants or chemicals or have a chlorine smell. This is actually purified water. Normally I use spring water, but really any water will do. So you're going to want to fill this up to finish off the rest of your gallon. And on these carboys that are specifically made for this, there's actually a 1 gallon marking here embossed on the glass. Kind of makes it really easy. You want to be careful here once it starts getting full. You want to leave a lot of room for the headspace here, because when this ferments, it's going to bubble over and leave a mess, kind of like what you're seeing now, but worse. And as you'll see, it'll zoom in here on the 1 gallon mark that is embossed on the glass. So really, once you get above that 1 gallon marking, that's a full gallon of liquid. You pretty much want to stop there. You can see here I'm a bit over. Here's what it looks like when all the honey's incorporated. Everything's mixed up real nice. This is kind of what you want. So what we're doing next is taking a gravity reading, which is essentially pulling the must from the mead and pouring it into the test tube. This tool on the left, the hydrometer, essentially it's used to measure specific gravity of the liquid compared to water. So there's a lot of kind of complicated science and math into this. Thankfully, this hydrometer just shows you an estimated ABV percentage when fully fermented. So we're just going to use that and kind of be lazy and easy on this one. You always want to fill it until the hydrometer is floating. You can see now it's floating, so probably would have been good to stop, but I always like to make sure it's filled completely. So as we zoom in here, we spin the hydrometer to make sure it's not resting on any of the walls. You can get a more accurate reading this way. And if this works out, it should ferment to a pretty solid 12-11%, which is perfect. That's exactly where I like it. Anything less than that, you're really not getting drunk. Anything more than that, you have to age it for a lot longer and it's a little harsher. Here we're pouring it all back into our mead because of course we sanitized everything, so no reason to waste it. Next step is we're going to be adding our yeast nutrient. This is some Fermate O. Essentially, yeast nutrient's important because it helps keep the yeast energized and happy during the fermentation process. Fermentation's pretty wild, and sometimes if the yeast gets stressed, if it's too warm, too cold, whatever, it won't ferment well, and you might get off flavors in your mead. So yeast nutrient just helps, and I would argue it's definitely necessary for mead. Here we're adding our final main ingredient, which is yeast. This is a Red Star Premier Classique. I prefer using this yeast, but a lot of them will give you similar results. Some people rehydrate their yeast. I personally just throw it in dry. And the last step is adding in your sanitized airlock and bung. This helps keep out fruit flies and oxygen that you don't want going into your mead. Once everything's in there, I always like to give it a swirl, make sure everything's incorporated properly. And fast forward to the day after, we have an active fermentation. Within a month or two, I can drop part 2 and show racking and bottling.